recording. So, are you ready?
Yeah.
To start off, I'd like to talk about props. So, just in your definition, what is a ballot prop?
A proposition in Arizona is the voter's opportunity to amend the Constitution of the state of Arizona.
Alrighty. Do you think they are an effective way of getting things done?
They are a good example of the will of the majority, and in a democracy it is the will of the majority that sets the rules. I think sometimes they're used by our legislature to bypass their own responsibility as elected officials and sort of passing the buck, if you will.
All right, thank you. And have you ever voted on a ballot prop? If so, which one?
I vote on every ballot prop that
Alright.
comes along, and I have since I moved down here.
So you're familiar with Prop 123 and 301?
Yes.
Alrighty. Did you support either of those?
As a public teacher, it's very difficult for me to answer that question at school,
Oh.
and improper for me to answer that question.
Okay. And then, do you think props are the best way to earn money for schools?
I would rather the legislature and the people of this state support education more and not have to do it through these propositions.
Okay. So that was a no, right?
Correct.
Why? Why do you feel like these are ineffective ways to earn money?
I don't think they're ineffective. I think that there are better ways to do it. One of the reasons that we elect a legislature is to make decisions for us. That's what a representative democracy is, a republic. And when the elected officials fail to make decisions, then it's left up to these propositions and it's left up to the voters. Well, Proposition 301, as the courts have ruled, the people voted in favor of giving teachers more money, giving school districts more money. The legislature, as the courts have decided, have not followed what the proposition said. So in our system, the courts have ordered the state to spend more money on education. The state has not done so. And that's what, once again, the courts have ruled that. That's basically breaking apart our system of separation of powers and checks and balances. The judicial branch has instructed the executive and the legislative branches to do something, and they have chosen not to do it, and thus we're back giving the people a vote on Proposition 123 for something that the courts have said should have been answered was Proposition 301.
Okay. And I know I didn't mention it in the email, so that's why I'm going to leave it up to your discretion. I would like to also ask you about year-round schooling. Is that okay?
Okay.
And so my first question with year-round schooling is, are you familiar with year-round schooling, and what is your opinion on them?
I am a little bit familiar with year-round schooling, just in the fact that I know people who have attended year-round schools. Though there are advantages in that hopefully kids would retain more from year to year if they're going to school more of the time. Disadvantages are a lot of people have to work. Students and teachers have to work during the summer. So if they never get a 3-month period to work, when do they earn that extra money? Because I know almost every teacher I know at some point in their teaching career has had to get summer job. And students have to get summer jobs. And if they don't have summer, when are they going to do that? So that's one issue with it. Another issue is going to be utilities costs, especially here in Arizona, when running the air conditioner through June, July, the first part of August would be very expensive. Where are we going to offset that? we don't spend nearly as much money on utilities in December as we do in July. So there are lots of good reasons for it. And if you want, since we're going to compare ourselves to the rest of the world educationally, the rest of the world goes to school for a lot longer than we do. You know, we're going to school on a 19th century agrarian calendar so that kids could go pick crops over the summer. Well, not many students are doing that these days. So if you're going to compare us to students in Japan, you're going to compare our students to the Europeans and the Asians, it's only fair that students go to school the same number of days, and we're not even close to 180 days versus well over 200 for most of the rest of the world. But that's going to take money. And right now, there's no indication that people are willing to spend the money to do that.
Okay, thank you. And then, have you ever considered working at a year-round school? Why or why not?
This is the only school I've ever worked at, and I've never interviewed at a year-round school, and there's no reason for it. It just hasn't happened.
Okay. There was an article and teachers working at year-round schools, and they tend to enjoy it more, feeling less interchangeable and replaceable. Do you feel replaceable here?
Yes and no. As a teacher, I think a lot of people believe that I am interchangeable. But very honestly, my situation, a couple of the things that I do, it would be, kind of help me not be so replaceable. But I think the system believes that teachers are replaceable.
Okay. Is there any other reasons why you think teachers would feel like in a year-round school setting less replaceable or interchangeable?
I have no idea what that would do for anything, to be honest with you.
Okay. And then, on average, year-round schooling have less absences. So, why do you think kids would like coming to school in a year-round school setting more? Is there any reasons?
Well, if you're talking about the year-round schools as I am most familiar with them, they get breaks throughout the course of the year, so then they're not going to school for 17 or 18 weeks straight with a few days off for Thanksgiving or Veterans Day or so forth, but they're going to get a few weeks off. And so maybe that allows them to stay fresher for longer periods of time because they do get the breaks throughout the course of the year rather than just 2 weeks off at Christmas and a few days off at Thanksgiving and 1 week off in the spring. That's the only thing I can think of.
Okay, thank you. And then, if you...
Okay, do you think year-round schooling would decrease dropout rates?
I have no idea.
Okay, and you already answered this, I think, but you said that it would help them retain knowledge from year to year.
It might, yes.
Okay, and are there any hesitations you have about year-round schooling? Anything that you?
Well,
personally?
my sister's family has been in year-round schools up in Colorado, and they have, she had kids in elementary school, middle school, and high school, and they were on different schedules. And so they couldn't even take family vacations during the breaks because there was always at least one kid in school. And that seems kind of ridiculous, considering that they're in the same district and the schools aren't on the same schedule. I know coaches have a difficult time because you may have half your team on break in the middle of the season. And so that's an issue for sports teams. If the football team, if most of the football players don't go to school until the middle of September, but they start practice at the beginning of August, it's harder to get kids there, especially freshmen and sophomores that don't have rights to school. Those are just a few of the things that I know of with that schools have to deal with. Another example would be AP and IB testing. If if those kids are on break in May, that's when testing is. So then that pretty much eliminates their break. Also, if they start school later, then they have less time to get prepared for those exams through the school year. And that's another issue. So there's lots of different issues that come into play here. And what's going to be good for one group of people may not necessarily be good for the other group of people. And, you know, our public schools have to serve the most people that they can in the best way.
And would you ever consider putting your child in a year-round schooling?
I wouldn't not, let me say this, I wouldn't not send my son to a school because it was year-round. But the reality is, I haven't even thought of it because it's not an issue in our school district. So, it's one of those things that I've never even really thought of.
Okay, and if I could just wrap up again with props and some odds and ends. So I'm just a little confused. So when props have their numbers for like 1, 2, 3, and 301, is that just chosen by them, or like the person drafting the prop, or is that something government legislators?
You know
choose?
what? I don't know the answer to that. I was trying to look that up today, and I didn't find a quick answer for that, so I can't answer your question. I apologize for that.
No, that's fine. And then when a proposition for education, for example, is made, and it portrays the school, does it have to apply to all schools, or can it just apply to a set few?
It's public schools.
Okay, so it has to apply to all public schools?
Yeah, these propositions are proposed by the legislature, and they become amendments to the Arizona Constitution. So then they apply to all the public schools in Arizona.
Okay.
That would be public as in Deer Valley Unified School District and most charter schools, I believe.
Alrighty. And then last question. I know you've only worked at one school, but do you feel like Arizona's education is lacking?
Yeah. We lack lots of things. We lack, we're right at the bottom of per pupil spending. We are, the reality is, we do some really, really good things with what we have. We have incredibly high class numbers compared to other states. I have a friend that is a mentor teacher for an organization, and he mentors teachers all over the country. In the rest of the country, these teachers, they average about 24 or 25 kids in a class. Well, we're way above that in our high school classes. And so, yeah, that comes down to how many teachers we have. Other states will have more teachers than we do, which means they can have fewer students in their classes than we do. Yeah, there's some things missing.
Okay. Thank you.